Hello everybody and welcome back to Minecraft in our talking about Redstone world. In the last one we just kind of caught up on this monstrosity in Bedrock. Before that we talked about red coders, 7-segment displays, and incrementers. We had our hunger bar back there as well as a few other examples of what you might do with that. Today, we're going to talk about piston doors and some hidden activators. And there's a little bit of difference between these in Java versus Bedrock, so be sure if you're a Bedrock player to stick around until the second half of the episode. But there's a lot of really classic piston doors. We don't get into anything crazy here, no 3x3s. For things like that, we'll have to look a little bit later down the line when we get into double piston extenders, things like that. But the simplest is just your classic hidden piston door. And this does work with both a button and a lever. Though for it to work with a button, we would have to have it rigged up with a torch. But either way, it does work with both. It will also work with a T flip-flop. In this case, we're just using a copper bulb as a T flip-flop. And it will hold states. We also have, and the way that this goes together, just real quick here, is we have two pistons like this, two pistons like this, with whatever our wall blocks are. And what we're doing is we are powering, because Java is a little bit quirky like that, the bottom and top pistons both, by way of bud power more than anything else. And what we're doing is we're powering this dust, then after a 2-tick delay, powering these. So we are activating and deactivating these first, followed by these, which is why we're able to retract and then go back over. We power this first. That doesn't matter because these pistons can't activate until they've extended. But we need these to retract first. So that's all we're doing there. And this is the exact same thing, just with a T flip-flop. By the way, copper bulbs making T flip-flops just their own block, phenomenal. Incredible addition to Minecraft. Over here, we did something a little bit silly. We are running our buttons up into an AND gate, and then we're inverting that signal. So this will only give a positive out, or this will, only change outputs when, this is an OR gate, not an AND gate. I know what I'm talking about, I promise. So we're using an OR gate. When we press either of these, it'll toggle state and change outputs. Technically, this is a NOR gate, because we are putting an output until we receive an input. And that just pulls both of those out. All we have back here is two pistons connected to our blocks. And again, because we're able to sort of bud power through, that's all it takes. Easy peasy. No one wants to see what's behind the curtain, it's fine. Over here, we've got piston trapdoors. And these will work with a lever or with a button. They'll also work with a flip-flop or with any of the other things we're going to look at here in a second. Really, whatever activator you want to look at. And we've talked about activators in their own episode before. You can refer to that for some more ideas. Ideas like a torch key. So if I stand in the right spot here, we get dropped out the bottom. Torch keys do not work in Bedrock, at least not in this way. There's some other alternatives that I include for Bedrock players that we'll get to in the second half, though. We can also use a calibrated skulk sensor, which we talked about earlier in the activator section. This one we've put on page 4. Page 4 is the page for unequipping and gliding with Elytris. So, if we switch game modes real quick here and glide, we get an activation. We can go through. Additionally, I could have done this from the back as well, but if we unequip an item, it will also activate the system. So all we've done here for this one is we have our calibrated skulk sensor, water running into a hole. We are leading power in from our lectern with a power of 4. This can be anything that you can get a power of 4 out of. We just need to make sure it is a power of 4. We're taking an output down to here into a decay clock. I really should have color-coded this. I didn't realize I didn't do that. From this decay clock, we're taking an output up to here, and we are just powering these sticky pistons through this block, and these sticky pistons down here through these blocks. So it is the exact same as this door setup, just using a calibrated skulk sensor. Over here we have another fun one. If I stand right here, and we till that land, we get dropped through. And the way that we're achieving this is this block right here, this dirt block, has a redstone torch under it. We're powering through it, which is allowing power to come up through here. And that power is then being inverted, hold on, let me get around here, by a torch, which is not powering currently this piston. The moment that we till that, we break the signal, this is allowed to turn on, it goes out and untills the land. From there, we're taking an output into a decay clock again, which we run down and activate our trapdoor, exactly the same way as over here. So let's talk about this now that we've seen it in action in a sort of hidden style. We're doing basically the same thing as over there. We have this line being immediately powered, and we have a 2-tick delay going into these two. We're powering this block and a dust on top of it. If we didn't have that dust on top, that wouldn't be powered. So that's all we're doing. Powering this piston to push up the floor block and powering these two pistons shortly afterwards. And that gives us the same thing where it's going to retract this first, then retract these because of the delay. So, pretty easy, pretty straightforward right now. It's just different ways to activate these same doors. But over here we've got something a little more interesting. And better decorated, I would argue. Last episode, we talked about red coders. And that is what I have built here off of the backs of chiseled bookshelves. So we're taking out signals from a set of the chiseled bookshelves inside of this library. And yes, I did a trapdoor roof. No, I don't regret it because this is a single-player world. So, if we look at the outputs here, we have 5, 3, 1, and 6. And if we come down into the library here, 5, 3, 1, and 6. And we get an opening. And what we've done here is we have taken 2 of these piston doors and just put them right next to each other. So we're able to retract 4 blocks and pull 2 to each side. Here and here. And as you can see, we just take this center input and we delay by 2 blocks in each direction before going to those sides. All this is 4 red coders and 3 AND gates. From the outputs we want, we torch tower up, and this creates our first AND gate. If either of these is on, this will be off, so we won't get an output. If either of these is on, this will be off, we won't get an output. Both of these must be off for us to get an output. We are then taking that output, inverting it again on each side here into another AND gate. So only when this AND gate is on and this AND gate is on will this give an output, which we are running down here. So, the way chiseled bookshelves work, as we discussed before, they only remember the most recent thing you've interacted with. It doesn't matter if you're taking something out or putting it in. So I took out number 4, and we have number 4 right here lit. 5, 6, 1, 2, and 3 are all off. 4 is on. And as you can see, because we toggled states, this is on, which means this is off. This is on, which means this is off. We have no output, and our door is closed. So, to reset this, once you were done in there, you would just come out and reset all of them to a number that you know is not the correct value in this case. I didn't use a 4 anywhere in the combination, so if I set all of them to 4, 4, 4, 4, and 4, we have no potential for someone to accidentally stumble upon the output. And because we have mixed in chiseled bookshelves with our... I didn't put any in that one. Chiseled, 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 chiseled. Chiseled. Huh. I didn't do any in the middle ones. Anyways, that's something that I would recommend doing, is intersperse a couple of chiseled bookshelves in wherever you have regular ones, because it does look really good, and it also looks less suspicious than if all of these were perfectly consistent. The other thing worth noting, as I fill these in, I can't believe I forgot to do this. Don't just keep using the same one, is on this one, it's the far left bookcase, so there's nothing here in the middle. I did that one and that one here. Okay. Anyways, on this one, it's the far left. It's not the one in the middle. On this one, it's the middle. On this one, it's the middle. On this one, it's the far right. Hypothetically, you could use any of these positions. You just have to modify where you're putting your red coder. So you could put it down here and just build this 2 over down 1, come off of that one instead. So they don't have to be in a consistent position, you just have to be able to run your AND gate outputs together. So with that, we've really covered the Java side. We got to use our red coders again. We got to take advantage of some of the activators we talked about before and didn't really use, like our T flip-flop inputs. We got to use our torch key, which we'll talk about some bedrock alternatives for. We got to use a calibrated skulk sensor, which works a treat. And we even got to get a little unusual and use a hoe to open a door. So we're going to go look at the differences between what we've done here and how it works in Bedrock, and hopefully get a good idea of how you can achieve basically the same thing with just a few minor tweaks. So I will see you on the Bedrock side. All right, welcome back to Bedrock. As you can see, we've got basically the same array of things laid out here with a little extra nonsense over there we're going to talk about. The first key difference is that, let's look at this. If we do this, we cannot power our pistons in the same way. This simply does not work in Bedrock. But we can easily get around that. So, I've run this line up here with a 2-tick delay coming to these side pistons. We're running torches down, so we're by default inverting our signal, which is great. It means that this is closed by default. And as you can see, we have the same action. This turns on and off first. This turns on and off second. So we'll get a retraction here, followed by a retraction there. And it works on a button as well. Beautifully. And all we've done here is we have put a block down the bottom with a dust on top. That dust is running into the repeat, or into the piston, and the block below is powering the piston below. And we're doing the same thing over here because redstone will redirect into pistons in Bedrock. So we're able to point into these with a redstone line, power the blocks below to power the ones below. With that minor tweak, we now have the same functional door. The only difference is you can't really go straight, you're going to turn off of this. And there's solutions for that. We'll talk about one of them here in just a minute. And over here we do the same thing with a copper bulb as a T flip-flop. Just showing, once again, this works the same way as our lever. Now, over here, we did have to get a little creative. We have the same OR gate coming up the top. We have the same output off of that. All we've done differently here is we have our piston stacked up. We have a repeater on top of this piston, which we're able to do here in Bedrock. That's really nice. And then we're powering this block. We're taking this signal into this piston and powering the block below. So again, a very minor change, but that very minor change allows us to get a working piston door. Once again, just a button on both sides. Very nice, brief opening sequence, and it looks pretty clean and flush. Over here, I've done the same piston trapdoor. The only difference is that I've inverted our signal off of a torch here, so it's closed by default, so that I can demonstrate with both a button and a lever. And this does work the same way in Java. I just didn't think to mention it while I was over there. But you can just invert the signal and do this. And it works a treat. So I was puzzling over torch keys because I know they don't work here in Bedrock. And there's a couple of alternatives we can use. You could use something like this, which is technically still a torch key. You just can't have it in the same way where you have a block here, you put this on and it powers a piston here. But you can have something like this where you've got a small hollow that you drop a key into. You could have something like this, where you put a redstone torch on a wall, and well, let's explain this one real quick. We put a torch down here. All it's doing is powering this line, unpowering the block, which turns off this redstone torch, which allows this to retract and extend. Easy peasy. On this one, we place our torch on the side here. It's going to power this dust, which is going to turn off this torch, turn off that redstone dust, retract this, and then we're just taking a signal out of the side. We're using this block to receive power, and then running a signal off of there. And then that would be your output towards whatever you're using it for. On this one, we just have this right here as our output, and you can run that to whatever you're running it towards. Those are a little conspicuous. This is a little bit closer to the torch key we did in Java, but instead we're just going to use a redstone dust. We're going to achieve the same result. We get an output, and we auto-break our redstone dust. And this is the same idea. Both of these are slightly different designs, but they work the same way. So we have a powered torch underneath here. When I put down the redstone, it'll form a cross. It'll power through into this block. We'll take that power through this repeater, through this block, unpower this torch, which will allow us to retract this piston. And then we're just taking power out the side there to our output. Or alternatively, with this one, we're going up instead, so we can't power from below. So we are powering from the side here. So we take a redstone torch here and a repeater into this block. When we put our dust down, it's going to take the power from that block. It's also going to power this block, which we send that signal through here into this block, down to here. And by doing so, when we power this, it powers this block, powering the piston. And we get our output from right there. Alternatively, if you want something that is still relatively conspicuous, or relatively inconspicuous, and you're okay with having a carpeted floor, you could also always go the path of using a button. If I do that right there, it'll auto-break, and we can just take an output the same way we did on the previous one through here, and we'll just do that to 4 ticks so that it stays on a little longer, just like that. And in practice, that would look something like this. You'd have a room with a nice border of carpet. Technically, by the way this is, you would be able to put this in the middle of a floor, but it would need to be somewhere relatively inconspicuous. Like that. Something else I wanted to bring up while we're here, though, and this works in both Java and Bedrock, I just figured I would bring it up in our sort of bonus section here, is if you have a carpet on your floor, even in the middle of the floor, you can use one of these. This is our red key card, and I happen to know that there is a hopper below here, so if I toss this, it gets picked up by the hopper, and then we can take an output. And all we're doing is we're using an item filter here, and saying when we receive the item that we're filtering for, we're going to increase the signal to unlock the filter. So when we get power here, that means we have successfully put through the right item. We're taking that output into a decay clock and powering based off of that. So this is also an alternative if you are going to put carpet on your floor. And you can put these pretty inconspicuously in the middle of a floor and hide them really easily. Over here, we have something pretty familiar. I'll give that a second. And if I unequip our helmet, it opens again. And just so it's noted, that is unequip only, not equip. This is set up basically the same way with a couple of minor tweaks. Water doesn't always behave the same way in Bedrock as it does in Java, but neither do repeaters and comparators. You can waterlog repeaters and comparators here. So, because of that, we're able to just kind of deal with this way. Our lectern has a book. Technically, we're on page 7-8 because it's the 4th page in the book, so the 4th power output. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, which is page 2, 5, 6, which is page 3, and 7, 8, which is page 4. We're taking our output the same way. This time I did think to color code it, fortunately. So we're taking power out through this block down into our decay clock. We're taking a output through the block of our decay clock here, and we are running down to the same door opening we had back over there. We have a torch inverting our signal, so this is closed by default. We have redstone dust going into these two repeaters, and the blocks down here being powered, and the same over here. So, that works functionally the same way. Your door's a little different. Like I said, when you come through, you're going to take a turn, because you're going to have some redstone components over here. Again, we'll talk about some ways to work around that here in a minute, or a way at least to work around that. This works the same way, if I can remember... Aha! Which one it is. That is the key part of using one of these, is remembering what block it is. But you till that, you drop through, nice clean closing, and you are in where you want it to go. This works exactly the same way. In fact, even the redstone here is pretty much exactly the same. We have a delay into those two. We have no delay into that one. We are powering this dirt, and because it is a full block right now, power is able to go through to that torch, which is turned off until we till it. Then, because it becomes transparent when it becomes farmland, it depowers this, powering on this torch, which destroys the farmland. Easy peasy. And it's nice, it's clean, it's quick. Now over here, I actually did color code this a little bit better than I did in Java. We have our red coders in cyan. They work exactly the same way. Our AND gates in orange. They work exactly the same way, and we have one AND gate, two AND gates, and a third AND gate. This one I handled a little bit differently. Rather than inverting directly off of here, I brought them over and then inverted, but it's exactly the same thing. We have the two torches coming into here, and when everything is in the correct state, it will open. In this case, we used a different password. We used 4, 2, 1, 6. So, let's take a look at that. We have 4, 2, 1, and 6. So here we did the retracting door style like we did over here, but with a key difference. We changed how we're powering these pistons, and we did 2 of them next to each other. Because if we did 2 of these next to each other right now, what we'd end up with is an inability to go forward without jumping over that block, which just won't do. So we've made a small concession, and we have redstone blocks in our floor and our ceiling. Why is that? Well, let's take a look at this thing. So ignoring the spaghetti mess we have going on here, this this line right here after this repeater, both that way and this way, does the same thing. It comes over to our inverted torch to power these 2. That's all that it does. It powers these 2, and it powers these 2 on the other side. Our change comes before the repeater. We're bringing our power into this block, and we're inverting our signal going down and up at the same time. This line comes across to here, which activates these 2 sticky pistons, which pushes down these 2 redstone blocks here and behind there, which act as the power for these pistons here and here. And we do the same thing around the bottom. We loop down, and we are just powering these 2 with their redstone blocks up. This is not the most compact version of this. This is not even the cleanest version of it, but it works really well for demonstration's sake, because you can get a nice, clean walkway. And then when we're done, we set back to a number we didn't use on any of these, so we did no 5s. So we go to 5, and that closes and seals. And that's actually another benefit to doing this in Bedrock, There are a lot of little tweaks and changes, but one of the key ones between Bedrock and Java is movable tile entities. So our chiseled bookshelves, in Java, you cannot move these with a piston. In Bedrock, you can, which makes this door just a little bit more inconspicuous, as opposed to in the Java version where I had to kind of be careful where I put chiseled bookshelves to make sure they weren't part of the door. But other than that, this works exactly the same. Minor tweaks to how the door opens. As you can see here, we've got those redstone blocks pushed down to power the pistons here, and the ones down here up to power the pistons here. But very minor alterations aside, this is at least a couple of ideas on how you can start putting some secret doors into your world. And as we go through this, we're getting closer and closer to the thing that really made me fall in love with binary logic and Redstone to begin with, which is combination locks. And we're not quite at the point where I'm ready to dive into those yet, but we're starting to see some initial steps in that logical process. Here is a combination lock. It is a chiseled bookshelf combination lock. But we're going to get a lot more complicated than this by the time we're done. I just really enjoy combo locks. So, with that, we are actually done in this one. Oh, oh, wow. Oh, that's a little bit cursed. I don't even walk. We're still doing this, huh? Well, hopefully I'll figure that out between episodes, but thanks so much for coming along on the adventure, guys. If you have any Redstone questions, or if you have anything that you'd like to see in future Redstone videos, let me know. I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.